So, finally getting around to another video here. Got cover for my trailblazer here. Pretty happy with it. It's like if anybody's dealt with like truck tarps, like would be on a belly dump or something, it's just like one of those. And it's got these little straps on it that hook into, like bolt to the side of the trailblazer to hold it on. It works really great. You know, keeps the weather and all that shit off it. And take the cover off here. The only problem with the cover is yeah, you can kind of see it scratches the shit out of the finish on the on the machine. And this came with just a gorgeous, beautiful powder coat on it. And if you watch my first video about the Trailblazer, you can see how beautiful that paint job was, or powder coat, whatever the fuck it is. And so it's kind of a bummer. I suppose you can kind of see now, if I move it just right, how scratched up it is, like scuffed up. Part of that too is where I live, they spread cinders on the road instead of road salt or anything in the wintertime. So that's probably not helping nothing. And I took all the lawyer stickers off of it just because I think they're stupid, and I just got to deal with getting the rest of that crap off there. I now have 209 hours on it. I've actually had two problems with it so far. The lift pump went out and I had to replace the lift pump, and the battery charge board failed. And in one of my other videos I'd mentioned that the battery charger steals power from the weld output. Well, come to find out, now looking through the wiring diagram and talking with a welder repair guy a little more, that the battery charge is the weld output. It literally, like, your weld terminals actually have 12 or 24 volts on them when you select battery charge. But anyways, that board failed, and I got to go out next week and have the guy put a new board in that. And then like I said, the lift pump failed. Wasn't a big deal. I need to make a separate video on that altogether. But my main reason for making a video today was this little Harbor Freight compressor here. I was watching Tool Teardowns YouTube channel. He just recently posted a video of his Harbor Freight compressor for a 1-year review, and I had made a comment on there that I've had this guy for about 8 years, turned up to about 180 psi, and somebody didn't believe that, which is fine. But I just I've been meaning to go through and make videos on all my tools. It's just, you know, not enough time in the day. But yeah, so had this compressor roughly 8 years now, give or take. About 3 or something years ago, I put an hour meter on it, and I think I've got 758 hours at the moment. You can see I've actually got 2 hour meters. That's actually because the first one that I put on there started running backwards. I don't know how that makes sense, but it did. So I added the other hour meter and ran it up to the time where it had stopped at last. And I just left the 2 on there just out of curiosity's sake. It is a really good compressor. I really like it. Given its limitations, you know, of course it is just a little 110 volt air compressor, but it's pretty quiet. You know, I normally, the way I have it set up, I have it in my shed and it fills about 250 gallons worth of air. And of course it, you know, runs for hours and hours and hours at a time. I think I timed it once that it takes like an hour 45 for it to fill up my air storage, but I don't care because it's out in the shed, and so I don't have to listen to it run, because I freaking hate listening to compressors run. But now that I've had the Trailblazer, I put this guy on here because like our job last night was a pretty good example. We were running the plasma cutter and doing some welding and all that kind of stuff, and I figure might as well just have one engine run on the Trailblazer than have the engine on the Trailblazer run and the engine on my Quincy back here. And this Quincy compressor is great. I love it. Makes a shit ton of air. It's actually got a pressurized oil system on it with an oil filter. But most of the time I don't need that much air. I've got a Miller Spectrum 375, I think it is, plasma cutter. And this Harbor Freight compressor keeps up with it just fine. And the Trailblazer will stick weld at about 140, 50, 60 amps. Run this compressor and the Spectrum 375, whatever it is, Miller's smallest plasma cutter, all at the same time. So if the Trailblazer can do that, why would I not have an electric air compressor on the truck to do that? And the Trailblazer running this little Harbor Freight compressor is quieter than the Quincy running. So anyways, to me it's a no-brainer. You can see here I have literally a fuel filter for the air filter on this thing. The way that these come, they have, and if you watch Tool Teardown's video, they have like a little black box on here about that big, and it's really bullshit because all there is just a piece of crap, little piece of foam in there, and nothing else. It's not actually a filter. And you can see this being mounted on my truck, and with where I live, it can be extremely dusty. And so I wanted to put something on there to give it cleaner air. And I've changed the compressor oil on this with Royal Purple Recip 100, I think it is, air compressor oil. Nowadays, now that it's, you know, all worn in and all that stuff, I only change it every 500 hours, which I'm sure is just fine. The reason that I bought this compressor is the place that I used to work at, a bark mulch company, they had one of these things, and you know, it had been dropped out of a loader bucket 4 or 5 times, been down in some dusty bark mulch pit for the past, you know, 60 years or something, and just sucking all that crap through the air filter that was on it. And you know, the oil in it was just like a black sludge, and it just kept trucking along. You know, it didn't make very much air, that one, because the cylinders are all worn out and everything, but it still worked. But, so anyways, you can see here that fuel filter set up and got a little screen on the end of it just to prevent insects and shit from getting in there, a little filter minder. So yeah, the cover to the pressure switch, I forget if I lost it or whatever years ago. So my old welder, before I got the Trailblazer, little Honda welder down there, used to sit up in this hole right here, and you can see where it's mounted. And I would sometimes have this air compressor in here if I took out the Quincy for one reason or another, and the exhaust of the Honda welder would actually blow straight onto the motor and the compressor and all that shit. And so the circuit breaker that's in the back of the motor here failed, and if I remember it, I just bypassed it. It's been a couple years now, and had to put a belt on it, and that's the part number and shit that I used on it. The original belt just, you know, got worn out and was all cracked out and all that kinds of shit. And at some point here, I'm probably gonna have to put pulleys on it, because the pulleys are actually starting to get fairly worn. But yeah, good little compressor. I'll start up the Trailblazer here and get the compressor going. My first video about the Trailblazer, I had mentioned that the XL Power will not run a little compressor like that. Come to find out, now just getting some more use on everything, that it will actually run that compressor if it's already warmed up and been running a little bit. Like today was 80 some degrees, and so that compressor nor the Trailblazer hasn't run today, so we'll see if it starts it right now. But even if that compressor ran for 5 minutes and just got a little bit of heat put into it. It does run off the XL power on the Trailblazer, so let's see if it will. Suppose I was going to mention too, so the 220 volt outlet on the Trailblazer here already came with this cutout in the plastic right here, so that when you stick a plug in here that the cord can lay down. For some damn reason, the 110 volt outlets don't come with that, so I put this in myself so that way you can stick, because I got like 90-degree plug, and if you put it in the top plug, then it blocks the lower plug. You can't plug anything into it. So by doing this here, you can see that that comes down, and the cover will actually close, not all the way, but pretty close. But anyways, see if it'll run off the XL power. And it's already at its cutout pressure, so won't quite do it. Trip the breaker. So in the standard outlet, okay, see if it'll start now on the XL power. Whoop. Oh, right, breaker. So, even just from that little bit of running there, you can see it's running halfway away. And compressor's sitting there running away. And we're plugged into the XL power. And so this generation of Trailblazer, I don't know if the older one does it. If you click this back and forth a couple times, it displays engine RPM, which is pretty slick. But so yeah, anyways, guy was commenting that that a single stage compressor like this won't run to 180 psi. Well, I've had this one turned up to 180 psi cutout pressure for probably 5 years, something like that. And you can see there I had my finger in the little unloader guy right here. And so if you hold that down, you can override the pressure switch and it'll just keep running, at least until the 200 psi pressure relief valve kicks off. But yeah, need to, like I said, make more videos about my Trailblazer here. I've learned a lot about it. I've got a suitcase now, a Miller 12RC, so not the VS version that damn near everybody else has. Need to make a video about that. Need to make a video about a lot of things. But yeah, there we go.